Hi everyone, my name's Jared, and I'm 15 years old. Do you know what it feels like to look into the mirror and don't see the person you want to see? Have you ever rejected yourself so much that you wanted to forget who you are and to pretend you were someone else? No, I've never suffered from any bullying at school or any kind of abuse. The point is that I am nothing. There's absolutely nothing special about me. At school, I was everybody's shadow friend, easily forgotten when not needed. I was one of 5 kids in my family, so I don't feel remarkably special there either. The only person I had in my life who ever cared about me was Frank. He's been my friend since early childhood. He was hardly lacking charisma and has always been the life of the party. I admired him and worshipped him, and never understood why this kind of person could be interested in having such a boring and basic friend like me. We studied at different schools, but we hang out a lot after our classes. He told me about his own music band and numerous girlfriends and parties, and I would always listen to him with my mouth wide open and try to hide the pain of not being able to have a tiny bit of what he had. I don't remember exactly when I realized this, but I started to hate him. But of course, I didn't have enough courage to admit that he was not the one to blame. It was me. So I tried to do my best to get rid of these nasty feelings and to maintain my friendship with Frank. One day, Frank came to my house on a weekend. He was all smiles. He told me he had absolutely great news for me. It turned out that Frank was going to my school now, and his parents even asked the principal to transfer him to my class. My mother was so happy to hear that. She loved Frank, like everyone else did. Every time he came round, she would have long chats with him. Sometimes, I even thought that she would be much happier if Frank was her son. You might have already guessed it, but I did not find this news exciting at all. Now I had to watch his Superman achievements every day. And besides, I didn't want Frank to become aware of my social status at school. Of course, he immediately became the top of the class, but then it went from bad to worse. He got Violet's attention. Violet was the girl of my dreams. I've had a serious crush on her for 2 years, but of course I had no chance there. I didn't have the sense to even think about it. I can't say the same about Frank. He was a heartbreaker, and soon my greatest fears were actually realized. Once he asked me to tell him everything I knew about Violet because he wanted to ask her out. For me, this was a punch in the gut. I was full of hatred and rage, but I kept pretending that I was a reliable friend, even though it was getting more and more unbearable. Because I'd been in love with Violet for quite a long time, I knew more about her than he could ever imagine. I knew her favorite movies and music bands and the perfume she liked. Everything, down to the littlest detail. I felt like I was digging my own grave. But I told him everything I knew. Frank was a little bit surprised that I was so aware of her life and wondered if Violet and I were friends or maybe something else. I just froze for a second, but then made myself say that he definitely had nothing to worry about. I only wish I knew where this would eventually lead us. One day after school, Frank suddenly suggested going for a walk in the forest we used to play in when we were kids. I think that I've probably never seen my friend so happy. We went to our favourite place on the cliff, near the waterfalls, and sat down to watch the sunset. And then Frank said, "I think I'm in love with her, and I'm sure she's in love with me." Thanks for your help, Jared. My heart sank. How could it happen so fast? I've been trying to get the girl's attention for years, and in the blink of an eye, she had fallen in love with Frank as soon as he showed up. Moreover, not without my help. This was too much for me. I sprang to my feet and ran. I was overwhelmed with rage. Frank now owned everything that was dear to me in this world. I had nothing to even dream about anymore. I wish he would just disappear forever. I was jumping from one rock to another and didn't notice I'd come too close to the waterfall. One false move and I'd fall down. I looked back and saw Frank's scared face. He was running after me, calling my name. I heard him screaming, "Don't move, I'll help you." Suddenly, Frank slipped on a rock face and fell over the cliff. I watched him fall head over heels. But then he managed to grab hold of something. He started to cry for help. "Please, Jared, help me!" I was just standing there without being able to move. But then I came to my senses. What am I doing? My friend is about to die and I'm just doing nothing. I rushed to Frank and tried to give him my hand, but he didn't make it and fell down. I was stunned. I called his name a million times, but he never answered back. I burst into tears. How could there be such a jealous and unworthy person like me? I killed my best friend, my only friend. Though there was little chance Frank had managed to survive, I rushed back to town to call for help. I was in a daze when the rescuers found him. He was pale and all covered in bruises and scratches. But a miracle happened. He was alive. I was weeping for joy. But of course, this was not the end. Frank has a broken spine. He underwent 5 surgeries, which still haven't changed the horrible truth. He will never be able to walk again. I went to the hospital every single day, but I didn't have the heart to open the door of his room. His parents and friends came to visit him as well, and attacked me with questions. And I did not have the heart to tell them the truth. What would I say? I couldn't bring myself to say anything and just ended up mumbling some nonsense. Fear cut me to the bone when I thought about what I'd tell Violet when she found out what happened to Frank. How was I going to look her in the eye? Well, the day came when she finally showed up. She was in tears. Before going into the room, she looked at me and asked how Frank was feeling. I think this was the first time she noticed me. The first time she ever asked me a question. It was a shame to think about it, under the circumstances, but I couldn't help it. I was looking at Violet and felt tears rolling down my cheek. I confessed everything, my love for her and my jealousy and envy for Frank. I told her the whole story of my lifelong pain. I tried to persuade her that it was all just an accident, that I didn't want this to happen. I expected her to call me insane and to blame me, but she just gave me a hug and said that I had to talk to Frank myself and to tell him the truth. Finally, I plucked up all my courage and went into Frank's room. He was all wrapped up in a cast, but he was so happy to see me. He thanked me for rescuing him millions of times. I could not believe my ears. Rescued him? I actually almost killed him. But then he looked at me very seriously and asked, "What happened, Jared? What was bothering you so much? Why did you have to run away?" I took a deep breath and started my confession. When I finished, Frank smiled and said, "I'm happy that you finally said what you're really thinking." He also said he would never dare to hit on a girl his best friend liked and couldn't believe that I hadn't just told him. I've never felt so bad in my life. But I have to admit, I finally breathed a little sigh of relief at that moment. I felt alive and needed for the first time in my life, but it was all bittersweet at the same time. I have never felt so bad in my life. Lies and envy are the most horrible and destructive things in the world. They ruin people's lives irreversibly. Envy destroyed my best friend's life, and the life of the girl I loved. It destroyed my life as well. I don't think I will ever be able to forgive myself for what I've done, though both Frank and Violet did forgive me. I would never expect anyone to be so generous. They both had me promise to never share this dark secret with anyone, and not tell mine or Jared's parents about what really happened. Even though Frank will be confined to a wheelchair forever, he hasn't seemed to have lost his optimism and his joy for life. He is determined to finish school and to go to college afterwards. He always loved playing basketball, and he even played on a school team. But since he has no possibility of doing it anymore, he decided to play wheelchair basketball. Violet was not scared of the situation at all. She is such a great support for Frank, and backs him up in everything he does. Every weekend, Violet and I take him to the park, and we have a lot of fun together. I think the two of them have really found each other. I really hope they're going to get married one day. As for me, this incident helped me to rethink my priorities and to reconsider my worldview. Frank is still an absolute role model for me. His hunger to keep going and his love for life fascinates and inspires me. Have you ever envied or lied to anyone? Did it cause trouble? I would be happy to know what you think of my story. You can give me a piece of your mind in the comments if you want to, but don't try too hard. I've had enough punishment for the rest of my life.
"The love of a family is life's greatest blessing," was my parents' favorite quote. They even had it framed in my bedroom and bathroom, so I could see it each time I got out of bed or while staring at my bathroom's mirror. Cliche, I know. I had everything a teen could want: an awesome dad and a loving mom who always created time out of their schedules for me. We didn't have much back then, but I was happy and comfortable. However, things began to change when my baby brother was born. He was born a week before my 12th birthday, and as if that wasn't enough, all the attention and love, or so I thought, shifted to him. On the morning of my 12th birthday, I sat up and waited for my parents to burst in with balloons and gifts, but the door never opened. I then got up and rushed to their room, thinking they were still in bed, only to find my mom fast asleep and my dad rocking my baby brother to sleep. They remembered later at night, after I reminded them that it was my birthday, and they apologized for not getting me anything. My dad said, "Sorry, sweetie, but we have a new baby, and we stayed up all night holding that milk bottle. But we'll make it up to you, Bunny." After another round of reminding him of his promise, my dad grudgingly took me to the park. Which 12-year-old goes to the park for their birthday? I'm not a dog or 5. I didn't want to go to the park, but it was better than nothing. At least, I was glad I was away from the baby's cries. On the way back home, my dad told me about how they had tried so hard to have another baby after me, but it never worked out. "This is a miracle. I'm sorry about how your birthday turned out this year, but things will return to normal very soon," he said. Well, that was a lie. A few months before I turned 13, the family-owned business hit it big and we became rich. We moved to a new neighborhood meant for rich people, and I changed schools as well. My parents became so busy that they would come home when I was asleep and leave before I got up. They got a nanny to take care of my brother, and I only got to see them during the weekends. Like this wasn't enough, they spent more time with my brother during the weekends than with me. My 13th birthday came and the same thing happened. They forgot, blamed it on their tight work schedule, and promised to make it up to me. Only that this time, I decided not to remind them to make it up to me. The funny thing was, they didn't forget my brother's birthday, and it was just a week before mine. The same cycle repeated when I turned 14, and it was then that I realized they didn't care for me as much as they used to. There was almost no happiness in my life until I met Lucas. Lucas's dad played golf on Saturdays with my dad, while his mom loved to go shopping with my mom. Each time they came over, Lucas would tag along. I didn't like him at first because I thought he was a jerk. He was trying so hard to show off, but he kept making efforts to get close to me, and I started to like him. Soon enough, when our parents got busy, we would sneak into my room and spend time together. I loved how he paid so much attention to me and always wanted to do silly things with me. On my 15th birthday, Lucas was the only one to remember my birthday, and he got me my first present in 3 years. I was so happy that he remembered that I hugged him longer than I had hugged anyone in a long time. I felt like I mattered once more and decided to forget about what my parents were doing wrong. I mean, Lucas cares, so I was good. A year passed by, and I looked forward to my 16th birthday. With Lucas, of course. "You should throw a sweet 16 party," he suggested, but I refused. I suggested that we invite a few friends and have fun with them. He bought into the idea, and we started planning for my birthday. A week before my birthday, it was my brother's birthday as usual. He was turning 4, and my parents told me that they were going to throw a party for him, as they always did. They told me that they wanted me to be there, as they had noticed that I was always absent on his birthdays. When it was time for the party to begin, I locked myself in my room and went to sleep. The next morning, they told me how displeased they were with my behavior, but I didn't care. I was glad that they finally felt the same way I had been feeling for the past 3 years. I wish they felt bad enough to ask me why I had suddenly grown cold, but they didn't seem to care, and just felt I was being a normal, rebellious teenager. Ugh, they're so old-fashioned. I continued with my birthday plans, and I couldn't wait to spend time with Lucas and my other friends. He told me that camping would be a good idea since my birthday falls on the school holiday. I liked the idea, but I also needed to get permission from my parents without letting them know that it was for my birthday. So I lied. We were having dinner when I brought it up. I told them that it was a school camp. That had to be the dumbest lie in the universe, as they saw right through it and called me out on the lie. "You do know that we know that's not true, right?" my dad asked. I felt stupid. Not only did I refuse to attend my brother's birthday as they had requested, but they just caught me lying as well. Then my mom mentioned that we were going on a family vacation to the beach house they just bought on some island. What? A family vacation? Why now? I replied that I wasn't interested and they could go without me. My dad told me it was for us to bond as a family for the next week, and he went ahead and gave me 2 options. It was either I went on the vacation with them or I would be grounded till school resumed. Either way, my camp plan was going to fail. I called Lucas that night crying and told him everything that had happened. "Why did they mess up all my birthdays?" I cried out. After calming them down, Lucas told me that he would call everyone that we had invited to cancel. Then he went on to tell me that he would tell his dad to ask mine if he could come along with us. I told him that if he could, I would be happy. The good news? Lucas was allowed to come with us, and we left in my dad's private jet for the beach house. The beach house was so huge. It had a big pool, and all the rooms had nice ocean views. The next day was my birthday, and even though I wasn't going to spend the day as I wanted, Lucas was around, and that was all that mattered. We settled in to have dinner that evening when my dad asked Lucas about the school camp. I raised an eyebrow. Were they trying to embarrass me? Lucas looked at me, not knowing what to say. There was no school camp. I made it all up because I didn't want to be. I stopped when I remembered that I didn't want them to know my birthday was the next day. I didn't expect what happened next. My dad insisted that we play hide and seek. He said that it would help ease the tension in the room and that I loved playing it when I was younger. Before I could say anything, Lucas told him that it was a great idea. I looked at Lucas, wondering why he had suddenly switched sides, but he just winked at me. My mom picked up my little brother and everyone got up to go and hide. I counted to 10 and then started searching for everyone. After about 5 minutes, I found Lucas hiding in my bedroom, and he joined me in looking for the others. We searched for over 30 minutes and couldn't find my parents. I told Lucas that I was tired, and I went to my phone upstairs so I could call my parents when he suddenly screamed my name from the kitchen downstairs. I ran downstairs to the kitchen and Lucas was nowhere to be found. I started screaming, "Lucas! Lucas, what happened? Where are you?" I panicked and called my parents, but their lines were switched off. I was about to go back to the living room when I saw a note on the kitchen counter beside Lucas's phone. It read, "We have your family and your boyfriend. If you call for help, you'll never see them again. We can see you." I felt cold shivers run down my spine. Was I being watched right now? Who had my family and Lucas? What was I going to do? I had so many questions running through my mind, and I was so scared. The doorbell suddenly rang, and I shuddered. I picked up a knife and slowly opened the door. There was no one there, but a small box with a piece of paper inside read, "Go to the garage and wait for our next instructions. If you leave before we tell you to or try anything funny, you won't see your family or your boyfriend again." Shakily, I walked to the garage. I was almost crying. I sat down, and immediately, the garage was shut automatically. The lights came on, and I saw a whiteboard a few steps away from me with something written on it. I walked to it, and on it was written, "You can choose your family or your boyfriend. Who's it gonna be, Bridget?" How did they know my name? Why are they telling me to choose? Didn't they say that they would let everyone go if I didn't call for help or leave? What's going on? I did this to my family. My mind flashed back to all the scary stories I had seen about situations like this, and I started crying. After a long while, I looked at my cell phone. It was a few minutes to midnight. I had been in the garage for over an hour. My family kidnapped us already. Without thinking, I started to dial 911, and suddenly the garage doors started opening, and I saw Lucas holding the sign with his right hand and the garage door remote in his left hand. I ran to him as he fell to his knees and held him up. "What happened? Are you hurt? I'm afraid," I said all at once. He told me that he got hurt from fighting with the two guys that held him, and they tricked him into the woods so he could come with me and take me where they kept my family before they got back. He said he had dialed 911 already and Lucas would soon be here. He asked me to take him into the living room as he would know how he walked. With his arm over my shoulder, I ran for the living room. As I opened the door and said, "Lights on," I was greeted with shouts of, "Happy Sweet 16, Bridget!" I almost died from shock. My whole family was there on the sofa. And that wasn't all. My friends who I had called to cancel camp night were there. The whole place was decorated and there was a cake on the center table. I turned to look at Lucas and he was all right. He had poured ketchup on his shirt to deceive me. My parents started walking towards me and I ran to hug them. "Happy Sweet 16, Princess. We love you." They told me how they had planned it all along since the day I started planning with Lucas. And they had gotten Lucas to come with us even before I said so because they didn't want me to run away. They apologized for not having enough time for me and promised to do better. For the first time since he was born, I gave my brother a loving hug. My Sweet 16 couldn't have gone better, besides the scary kidnapping part. I told my parents never to pull such a prank on me again, though. This was scary, but everyone put their heart into the planning, and that meant a lot to me.